Hey there, Mr. Cersei.
Let's try that again.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Hi.
Hi, Dr.
Hello.
B. How are you?
What's going on?
Nothing. Give it a few more minutes.
Yeah. I gotta get me some real glasses. I think sometimes these glasses are like too big. They're just cheaters. Like
Yeah.
I have like 30 pairs of them, I think.
Hey there.
Hi, I was having some trouble logging in. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Karina was going to share the presentation thing that we had. Is it on here or do you know? I can't find it.
I do not have it.
Okay.
But if
It's also saying that the host disabled sharing, screen sharing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
okay, I think we can fix that.
Alrighty.
Who has the presentation that wants to share it?
I have it.
Either one of
Either
us.
one of us.
Vinny, can you try it now?
Yep. Nope.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Hi, folks. It's 6:01 p.m. I'm going to guess that people are going to continue to sign in. This meeting is being recorded just for the sake of providing everyone the opportunity to go back. Joe Bietta, Superintendent of Public Schools, Jen O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Vincent Cersei, Director of Pupil Personnel Services and SEL District-Wide and Counseling, and Cassandra Russo, Coordinator of Special Education. We welcome all of our parents who are involved within our special education programming in Norton Public Schools. Thank you to the parent who suggested that it was a good idea to do this as we did all of the other ones and kind of keep it more in tune to the topics that are very concerning to you folks as families. So just a general idea of tonight. First of all, just some ground rules. Please go into the Q&A and ask questions, and we'll have a Q&A session towards the end. If your question is specific to your child, then please ask your teacher, then move up the administration cycle. That's the best way to resolve issues and not necessarily speak about them directly tonight since we want to keep confidentiality and it is being recorded. The other part that's important is anything to do with staffing concerns that you have. Again, that should be going directly towards the teacher themselves or paraprofessionals themselves, then to the building level administrator, and then all the way up the ladder towards Vinny, Casey, and myself. just some professional requirements that we want to have within a recorded meeting. Tonight's meeting is really all about taking a look at our special education as of today, the 22nd of October. I wish it was December. The idea behind tonight is also to give you a little bit of an update. We currently remain right now a low incidence district. We have not had any cases on site, although we are waiting a response on an incident from today. That incident again is a situational that I can't speak to right now, but all are safe and everything's good. And we get any type of information, we'll release it to you, of course. But the incidents we've had in school have been actually related to having to close down a classroom and or a couple of classrooms actually in the first case because of situations with community organizations that then led to conflicts and us just being precautionary in school. And that's been our role and we'll continue to do so. When we look at the model that's before us, the hybrid model or the parent choice of the Digital Learning Academy or the full remote, the state asked us, regardless if a child was on an IEP or 504, ELL, at risk, involved with the state different DYS or DSS or DCF, I should say, and any child that's homeless for us to really take a look at situations as much as possible, as well as our preschool program. So tonight you're going to hear a little bit from, I think, Vinny and Casey together, trying to give you kind of an overview. We were also going to put on the table for really the first time a discussion with you about ideas that we're thinking of, things we're working on in the background. And I really want to address this specifically before we start. We have been working on trying to look at 6 weeks. Next week will be 6 weeks of student data, family data, surveys that we've sent out. The staff is having their own survey through the Norton Teachers Association. We've had student data at the high school through a survey by the principal. We're now doing a 6 to 12 survey. Any student and all students in 6 to 12 being asked to participate. Parent survey that's been done about a week ago. All of those results in our internal anecdotal information and things that the way that we see it from every department, both what we call strengths and challenges, will be part of the school committee meeting a week from tonight, where the school committee receives basically our most updated information on what's taking place. But tonight you're going to start to hear a little bit about some thoughts and ideas that we have. Please make sure that you understand that thoughts and ideas do not mean that they're actually happening. I made a couple of comments the other night about closing schools during the holidays and all that stuff that some folks got really worried about. I've addressed those with those families. And again, I was suggesting ideas and things that are on the table. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I also don't want you to get it last second. The ideas that you're going to hear tonight are all about looking at becoming better at what we're doing within our hybrid model. And better in providing services to children via a public health issue. So I want to address that real quickly before we start. And Vinny, I'll turn it over to you. Mm-hmm. So we have federal regulations and an agreement with you and your child and you as a family between the district and you to provide services to the best that we can and agreed upon by the parent, guardian, and the district. But there's also something in play right now that's not part of that IEP, and that is public health. And the issue of 6 feet social distancing, transportation done in a certain way by rules and regulations, and even food services. Those aren't excuses, but they sure as heck cause some significant curveballs. I can assure you that we'd probably be having more kids in school already if it wasn't for some of those rules, regardless if they were a child with special education services or any other service delivery model, to be quite honest. So just take that for what it is. And I'm going to turn it over to Vinny for a quick PowerPoint, and then we'll do Q&As afterwards.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Dr. Bayetta. So Casey and I are going to talk a little bit about what's been going on. And then as Dr. Bayetta said, we're going to be looking at the future as well. So just a real quick sort of where we're at here. Well, maybe. Well, let's try doing it this way. There we go. So we're going to talk about Norton Special Education at a glance, just to give everybody an idea of the number of students that we're talking about in each of the area buildings, and then how students are accessing special education during this time. We're going to give you some updates on the models that are in action and what we're doing with them and some of our plans moving forward. And then finally, as Dr. Bader said, we'll do some questions. So currently, as many folks may or may not know, there's about 2,200 total students with an additional 163 students from school choice. Of that, we have about 547 students with IEPs, which is approximately 23% of our population. You can see the numbers below. JCS has the largest population with 135 students, but that also includes our students that are in our Little Lancers preschool program. LGN has about 66 students, the Hayes 74, Norton Middle School 113, and then Norton High School 117. And then we also have 43 students that are out of district. And again, those are students that are on intensive IEPs to students that may have only 1 or 2 services. So special education right now, how it's represented in the various models, there's students that are qualifying for the 4-day instruction. So they're coming in all 4 days. And we'll get into that a little bit later on about how that was determined and what we're doing with those students. But those are typically students that have a pretty intensive IEP or are in a specialized program. We have about 160 of those students. Of those 160, we have about 130 that are attending for all 4 days and are on that schedule. And we have a total of 297 students that are attending hybrid out of our special education program. And then we have 79 that are attending our distant learning academy as well. So what we think and what we're hearing, and hopefully people agree, is what's been going on so far and what's been a positive. Part of the Department of Education's requirements coming into the school year that was that every family should be contacted by their liaison to do a service delivery meeting. And in that meeting, you should have gotten an idea of what the services in the model that you chose were going to be delivered, how they were going to be delivered, by which staff, what the times, what the schedules. Some of those were done early on per the DESE requirements. Some of those schedules may have changed based on needs and how your student or other students are responding to the service delivery method. But those meetings should have occurred for most families at this time. If they have not, you should reach out to your liaison or your team chair, and they'll help to make sure that has been done. And again, the focus really was on ensuring service delivery minutes are met. Again, depending on the model that you're in, it may be a little different, that they may not align with the grid in terms of days and frequency, but the focus both from our perspective here in Norton, but also the Department of Ed, was that really want to make sure that in whatever service area, whether it's academics, speech, OT, that the service delivery minutes are met, even though it may be a little different because of the model that you're in. As I said, liaison should be contacting you. In some cases, it may have been the liaison that you, in the beginning of the year, that your child would have had if they were in their regular, everybody's back to school method. Some liaisons have had to been changed, especially obviously going to the Distance Learning Academy. For example, the special education teachers that are serving those kids would not necessarily be the ones that would be servicing them if they were in school. So there has been some changes there, but our teachers worked really hard to connect and to collaborate with each of the liaisons to make sure that they get as much of the information about your student, their learning styles, what their needs are as possible. Most of our out-of-district partners have returned to school in some fashion, whether it be a hybrid model or in many cases a full return. If those who are not in back full-time are working towards that model as well. I think one of the other things, especially in the hybrid setting, that's a little bit different is because of the nature of that schedule, the group sizes are actually much smaller. So although they're only coming in and we'd like to see them in more time, when they're in their regular education classroom settings, they really are on a much smaller cohort. So there's a lot more teacher contact with the regular education teacher, and in some cases with the special education teacher as well. And I would say that is the same for students that are in programming and are in 4 days, but get inclusion services. So the 2 days that they're with their cohort, they're in a smaller group, they're still getting their special education services in that manner. But on the days that they're in the program, they're really getting some more intensive services that way as well. And I'll let Casey take over from there.
Sorry, I'm having technological issues trying to unmute. My apologies. So we're going to look at how the return to school has been going in action. So, Brittany, all right. So our Little Lancers preschool has returned to in-person instruction in the regular traditional model that they have always been in, and that's based on the DESE and the EEC guidance regarding IEP compliance as well as health and safety measures. So we do currently have 3 half-day classrooms running for 2.5 hours in the morning and the afternoon, 2 full-day classrooms, and then that best classroom is currently our highest need students right now, and they do have morning and afternoon programs as usual. Their 5-day AM program is still running 5 days per week, and the 4-day afternoon program is running as well. And things seem to be going pretty well over there. The hybrid learning model, so this is being staffed entirely by Norton educators at this point. Students, as you know, are remote on Mondays and in school for either cohort 1 on Tuesdays and Thursdays or cohort 2 on Wednesdays and Fridays. And as Vinny was saying earlier, special education staff are working really hard to see their students for their services on those in-person days as much as possible, based upon the schedules and all the variation in schedules. I think some of our therapists are doing 1 day of in-person instruction, then 1 day of maybe remote learning or telehealth services. But they're really working as diligently as possible to make sure those services are done as in person as frequently as possible so that we're getting the maximum out of our students and the time that we have with them. And at this point, we have seen some of our DLA students successfully return to the school in the hybrid model or even in the 4-day model, as we'll see in a moment over the past few weeks. It's been nice to have some of our cohorts growing a little bit with our kids coming back into the building as families and students feel a little bit more comfortable with the protocols and such that are in place. And then there's our 4-day high need model. So all of our sub-separate programs and specialized programs have returned to 4-day in-person instruction, again, based on that guidance from DESE regarding their IEP compliance and also following all those health and safety measures. Some families whose students are eligible for that 4-day high need model have chosen to do hybrid or DLA, just based upon what works best for their family and their situations. They still have access to all of their services that they would have had, but again, are receiving those in a remote model, if they're not in person all those 4 days. And again, for those 4 days, all of their sped services are being delivered in person by all of our staff. And again, we've seen quite a few students who originally chose the DLA Academy return to that 4-day model in some capacity to come back into the school setting. And then there's our Digital Learning Academy, which most of the general and special education teachers in the academy are Norton staff and who are working remotely, as you all pretty much know. Most of our therapy services are being conducted with a mix of teletherapy staff, who is a company that we have consulted with or contracted with, and Norton staff providing those telehealth or remote services as well. So there's a nice mix in there. Our special education and gen ed staff are working collaboratively to provide those accommodations and to modify the curriculum in Edgenuity or the Florida Virtual for our elementary students to meet the unique needs of our kids. There's not as much leeway in the programs as we would necessarily be able to provide in the classroom setting in terms of accommodations and modifications, but our staff are really working hard to make sure that it's the most appropriate fit for our students moving forward. And then just back to those therapies and service delivery. So as I said before, we've contracted with a company called TeleTeachers, and they are working to meet the service delivery needs of our DLA students for speech and OT services. So all of our students who are on IEPs for speech and OT and are in the Digital Learning Academy are receiving their services through TeleTeachers. The speech therapists and the occupational therapists that we're working with are former Massachusetts certified specialists and are very familiar with our IEP processes. They're helping to do the progress report monitoring, writing goals and objectives for annual reviews, things along those lines, and contacting families directly to help schedule those things. I think there's a little bit more leeway in terms of scheduling times because they are in a remote model, so it's not necessarily being done within the normal hours of the school day, but all service minutes are being met through them. And then for our other telehealth services, so for PT and counseling, or for our DLA and or hybrid students, we're using the telehealth. And then speech and OT for our hybrid students are doing a telehealth model with our Norton therapists. So parents should have received a telehealth consent form from the therapist regarding the protocols, the rules and regulations, signing off on the consents to deliver services, rules about recording sessions, observing the sessions and things along those lines.
And I think it's important, not all hybrid students would be receiving telehealth services. Only if, depending on the needs of the individual student, how many, times we need to meet, how it would fit into the schedule. So, but many people did get the consent just in case we had to switch to that or we move to a more remote model.
Benny, can I just interrupt for a quick second?
Sure,
just so that folks
To the
get
boss.
not really. So that people get a gist. We are at 23 Norton Public School educators and support staff out on FMLA or FCCRA and counting. That does not include somewhere in the range of about 4 to 6 maternity leaves that are going to be coming up. So you might see some staffing changes over the next 3 to 4 months, mostly around those types of issues, not counting any type of COVID situations that happen with families that work for us. So just keep a gist of how in-depth this is becoming in terms of the staffing issues.
And then one of the most important parts, aside from the service delivery piece, are those IEPs and evaluations. At this point, we have gotten all testing from the spring is either completed or currently underway. I know that we've kind of talked about this a few times, but we had quite a backlog of testing that had to be completed from the spring. So consents that were received and testing that had to be completed from February on, some of the consents being received. So at this point, we have, I think, completed a large majority of it. Like I said, some of it is still underway, but all of those meetings should have been scheduled and things should be catching up. It's been a lot of work, but I think we're finally catching up on some of that. And then the consents are being sent out now for evaluations that are due this fall and in the early winter. I would say about 90% of those are on schedule. We did not get a lot of leeway from, or by a lot, I mean no leeway from the state in terms of modifying timelines for evaluations and IEPs being due and holding the meetings and such. So we're really working hard to make sure that we're meeting timelines as effectively and as possible. For initial evaluations, districts are receiving strict guidance from DESE on skill regression due to COVID and how to accurately document the needs for evaluations. So the state is recognizing that all students have been impacted by the school closures, and it's not just a special education thing. So it's really going to be up to the instructional support team, the IST process at the building level, to really determine what level of services and interventions kids are going to need moving forward. So rather than jump right into an evaluation or a screening of some sort, the building level teams are working to determine how we can rectify those gaps on an individualized and classroom basis, rather than jumping into the evaluations, like I said.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about next steps. So in the event, and we're all hoping this doesn't happen, but if we did return to full remote learning, we are having ongoing conversations about how that would occur, and we are working with some of our special education folks to take a look at how we would do remote learning plans given the current situation. So, we're hoping that's not happening, but behind the scenes, we are definitely planning for that. As we move forward and hopefully don't go towards remote learning, but actually go towards more in-person learning. This is how we're sort of beginning to have those conversations. As you know, we've talked about this already, but the guidance in the fall of 2020 by the Department of Education really had us focusing on prioritizing students that have really complex needs, preschool students, sub-separate and specialized programs. The next level, based on that criteria that we need to take a look at and are already beginning to work with is our students that are currently homeless, students that might be in foster care or some other kinds of care, and then our students who are duly identified as English learners, and we have to take a look at their SEI level. We are also currently working on how to plan to bring those students back for 4-day instruction in a phased model. We're taking a look at that. And again, we have to work around those health and safety issues as well. So each school is a little different based on those sets of criteria, as well as how to make it in a positive and productive learning environment during the hybrid days. So those are things that we are working on. We are also working on a plan to bring back our highest needs special ed students in for a 4.5-day week. So those are all things that we are currently working on, and depending on how things go with COVID and health and safety, we will be moving forward. So how is this going to be determined? Well, as it says, the administrative team is working to determine the timelines, but we also have to consider those logistical concerns that Dr. Baeta had talked about in terms of health and safety, transportation, distance within a building or within a classroom. Those are all the things that we're looking at as we move forward. Any changes will be presented as a phased-in approach to make sure that we are cognizant of the health and safety standards, and that these are successful returns to school for some of these students. As we move forward and look at some other students to bring in outside of those three categories, we're developing a rubric that really takes a look at the guidance from the Department of Education to access sort of the curriculum, and to really look at where students are in terms of their service areas. Do they have multiple service areas? How many academic supports do they need? Do they have growing or ongoing social emotional concerns? And then was there really an extreme difficulty accessing remote learning for a variety of possible reasons? Just to sort of clarify, if a family opts to switch models right now, how will that impact service delivery? Our goal, and it's been our goal from the beginning, is that no matter what model a child participates in, that the service delivery will be met. The service delivery minutes in particular will be met. So, we're dedicated to making sure that works for our students, no matter what model they're in. Right now, the district requires at least 48 hours notice to modify the placement of the child. And that's to update their schedule, their class placement, and look at some of those pieces, make sure that we have a place for them to go within their classroom that's safe based on the health and safety protocols. So those are things that we need to consider as we move forward. If transportation is required, either specialized or regular ed, we really do require 72 hours because this oftentimes 1 or 2 changes can literally change bus routes for that particular school and on those days. So we really sometimes have to move students around. We have to change bus routes in those kinds of things. Sometimes the high school students actually may require additional time, especially if they're in a inclusion model, because of, again, health and safety requirements. And then we have to take a look at sort of, especially if they're going from the remote DLA to the hybrid model, sort of where are they? How do we transition those grades over to another class? Do we have an elective that fits their schedule? So those kinds of things take a little bit more time. And that is our presentation, Dr. Baeta.
Thanks, guys, very much. Couple of different things. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen Stern, member of the school committee and the liaison for special education throughout the district, is also joining us in case folks need to know her name or want to reach out to her instead of us. Happy to do so. Couple of different questions around thresholds. I want to talk about that because it's really, really important about how we make decisions about having to go towards a remote situation or whatever. So we're always going to utilize, Norton Public Schools is neither a red state or a blue state. We're going to use science to make our decisions based upon the local Board of Health, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, the Department of Education, and my office. From there, we'll collect our data and information. From there, we'll move to classroom situations, building situations, multiple building situations, or district-wide. And then the last part is staffing. What is the impact that COVID has on a school or the district that requires me to consider options. So that's the threshold that we're going to use. It's all about the data and information. I can't really have a classroom taking place if I don't have a teacher. So that may cause me to have to make a decision around that. So those are some of the negative situations. But the threshold is always going to be to look at individual situations. For example, when we had a community outbreak or we had a community organization situation a few weeks ago, because one of our specialized classrooms in that school had students going into the general education classroom as part of the model best practice, we ended up closing both the general education classroom and the special education classroom for that time. Why did we do that? Well, it was totally out of precaution, but we felt that the moment the students left their specialized program and went into the general, and they were there for more than 15 minutes, and they were there for part of the instruction, that we needed to treat them like we would any general ed classroom. So that's always going to be our model. It's literally A and B and C and D and E leads to your answer. Just want to make sure that folks know that. Some of this also requires that I communicate with the state, specifically with the commissioner's office. And I'm not asking for permission, but what I'm asking them for is best practices advice for the next move that we should make. And to be quite honest, it all falls back on the superintendent's office. It falls back to me to bring the crisis team together. Casey, Vinny, Jen, Wade, Matt, myself, Karen, and the building principal all become part of that decision process. And of course, with advice and consent from the school committee as the governing body. But the decision lies with my office at the end of the day. So that's the big picture of how decisions are made. So we could have 3 classrooms at the JCS closed, but the X program in special education is not closed. We could have the reverse. Your child may have been at an event and they're in a program, and it happens to be that it happened over the weekend, and on Monday you find out and it's a remote day and they weren't necessarily in school. So therefore, when they come back on Tuesday for the 4 days, that could have an impact on them. So it's all about the contact tracing, and that's how we're going to make our decisions. It's very complicated. It's incredibly time consuming. Every event that happens over the weekend requires the team to come together over the weekend to make decisions about Tuesday. So that's what we've been doing every week when we get information. And then we try to communicate that information to you with some specifics, but also making sure that we're being appropriate and supportive of individuals and their right to privacy. So that's the way that we're going to act on some of those things. There are, one of the things that's come up, and somebody's asking a question about help on Mondays. We're looking at a couple of different scenarios and models to try to literally bring back students for more than just 4 days a week. On the other side of that, we're also looking at different models and situations where we know that, I think it was Mr. O'Neill the other day at the meeting said that our teachers are very lonely after school. So the teachers have 2 days a week for half an hour that they are available via one-to-one meetings and or small group to work with any student that has any question and any support that they need about the work. And I can assure you our teachers have been very lonely. Not a lot of kids showing up. But so we're going to be, we're pushing out some more publications of when those days happen. I've asked Jen to lead that effort via the principal's office to get that information out to parents. If you ask a student in 3rd grade or 7th grade or 9th grade or 12th grade that it's an option to go talk to the teacher, we all know what the option is going to be. The teachers are going to be very lonely. The kids aren't going to show up. We need parental involvement in that to make sure that you folks know about those days being available to students across the district, regardless of what their learning style and or challenges may or may not be.
Because I want to say on that, when that comes out, you may see for some of our special ed staff that it will say the office hours, but it may say by appointment. And the reason for that is, well, a couple of different things. One, if there's an individual student who has a concern, sometimes they want to have that done without others there while they answer those questions. So that may be part of it. We also may be using some of that time to consult with parents and families, depending on that situation as well. So you may see that the regular ed staff have just office hours and it's open. And I think I encourage our students that are in inclusion settings or to make sure that they check in with those regular ed teachers who have that content knowledge. But if they need to meet with their special ed teacher, even though it says that, please reach out to them as well. They'd be happy to do it. But that's why it will say by appointment only.
Okay. There's a question here. Can you please review the expectations for the Monday 12-day remote for children that are identified at high need? Should they be receiving full half-day instruction similar to all students? I'll defer that to you guys.
Yes, they should. Again, if they're in an inclusion setting, they should be working with their regular education staff, and then their scheduled the schedule of the individual teacher, or in some cases, the therapist also either work during that morning. And I know in some cases, especially our itinerary staff, our speech or OT are doing some of their service delivery that afternoon. So they should be meeting with their teachers in whatever setting they are, based on a schedule for that half day. But some students might be getting some additional services just based on scheduling needs on that Monday afternoon.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Who's acting as the team chair at the Yale School?
So
Casey,
at the
I believe.
moment, Casey is acting as the team chair, and we are in the process of reviewing resumes, and we'll be beginning the interview process hopefully by next week. But Casey right now is the person you can reach out to if you have any questions or concern and you're at the Yale.
Sure am. So please feel free to reach out to me or to Alex Sanborn in the PPS office if you need anything immediately. We've been working to get a lot of IEP meetings scheduled, as well as reaching out to families to try to get to straighten things out and see what we can do to help support families at this time. But like Vinny said, we're working on it. We'll get there.
Let me see. Is there a plan moving forward in case that happens again with multiple grades in a separate classroom? There's a potential of students being consistently moved to the remote for quarantine because a student was potentially exposed. The other grade students were also quarantined. I truly appreciate the caution. But my fear is that if a child is a different grade is exposed and my son's program keeps getting quarantined, it is a way defeats the purpose of him getting the 4 days a week. We have been truly impressed with the school teachers and district administration. Thank you for your transparency, keeping our students safe and everything. So thank you, Lisa, for the question. So this is where we have to walk the walk between educating the child and the public health issue. So I only make those decisions literally based upon talking to the Norton Board of Health and potentially DESE or Department of Elementary Secondary Education giving me advice, or the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. It's that fine line between truly understanding what you're saying about, what's the purpose if every single time this happens, my kid's got to go home for remote because of quarantining. It comes down to stopping the potential for things to go from person to person and become a cluster within a family, a school, a school community. So that's the reason why I completely understand your frustration with it. This is the reason why somebody said the other day during the hybrid model meeting and that I sounded a little irritated. I'm incredibly irritated with people that are getting on planes or deciding to leave the state during the holidays. Call it whatever you want. I don't care. I'm frustrated because you are directly impacting 2,300 students and 400 adults. Because you've decided that that's what you need to do. I understand that there's difficult situations. There are family issues with health. There are unfortunate bereavements and all of that. But having your timeshare in Florida, bad reason to leave the state during COVID. How's that? So my son is my child is doing hybrid first grade between going from Seesaw and Zoom meetings with their IEP teacher. There are no room for breaks for him, especially on Mondays. Yes, that's come up. We're trying to figure out so we have a contractual 7-hour day with our employees, and we're required to do X number of hours of professional development on Mondays. And then we're also trying to make sure that the child is seeing teachers. So we're trying to find that balance. This is also happening in the other grades. So it's on our docket of trying to address it. We've had some discussions about schedules that would look a little bit more the same, where, everybody from 10:10 to 10:20 would be completely off of Zoom. The teachers are off of Zoom. Your children are out of Zoom. Everybody gets a 10-minute break, but it takes away from the hours that we're trying to get to with every student, and we're required to get to. So that's the reason for that. Not a good answer, but we'll continue to struggle through it.
Yeah, the only other suggestion I would have is at an individual level of maybe having, sending an email to the special education teacher that's working with them and just explaining and seeing if in the time that they're meeting, can you get a 5-minute mask break, run and get a snack break, something like that, especially at that age. I think most of the teachers, they're as Dr. Bayetta said, we're trying to walk these fine lines and making sure we meet all the minutes and do everything that we're supposed to do in terms of the IEP. But we also recognize that, sometimes kids need breaks. And in real life, if you were sitting there with a teacher and needed a break, we give them a break. So I think making sure that he or she is aware of that would be helpful.
As a parent who had impacted by the classrooms that had to go remote due to the COVID contact, I would like to advocate for the teachers and staff and parents to have some time to adjust. It was trying to get my son tested while also trying to figure out how to adjust to full remote. Yes. So what's happening is, what we're trying to do, it's a great question. It's another frustration. What we're trying to do is, if in fact we have those situations, we're trying to be as seamless for your children as possible within the academics. And it's not necessarily working the way that we want it to work, because going from a hybrid model or even a 4-day to all of a sudden you're full remote, those are just so different from each other. And you have so much more responsibility as a parent within the home to help your child, and more than we want to give you, to be quite honest. But we'll add this to our discussions in terms of trying to come up with maybe an A plan and a B plan, and maybe you can choose which plan you want as part of that transition, when in fact you have to move to remote because of a COVID situation. So we'll put that on our I'll call it just plan A, plan B. Which one would you like when you go from whatever model you're in to the remote model? Maybe could be something that we give you to choose from and go from there. Jen?
What are the expectations of high needs students on the remote Mondays? Are they expected to sit through the synchronous learning without supports, or if they struggle with afternoon assignments?
Anybody want to take that one?
Yeah, I think it kind of plays off of what that previous question was in terms of a child struggling between doing all the things. I think that like Vinny and Dr. Bayetta said, we're really walking that fine line of meeting service delivery minutes, meeting time and education, but also balancing the needs of and recognizing that our most high need students really are struggling with the remote learning and sitting and paying attention. So I think that that's one of those things that on an individualized basis, we have to really talk to the students team and see what we can do to adjust that and go from there. I think
there's a lot of pressure, both I think for parents, what I've heard, and then for teachers, what I've seen is, that the students in that high needs group needs to pay attention and be engaged the entire time. And again, the reality is, even sitting in our classrooms with all of the things and all the little tricks that we have, there's times when some of those kids need a break, or some of those kids need to step away. Or that's a reality. So, again, communicating that with your teacher and saying, I think it would be good if we could have a movement break, or if you think if your student works with certain with the occupational therapist and you would like some ideas around how to, give them that motor stimulus and that input while they're sitting there, we can work with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we're trying to do, so the next Thursday, the school committee is going to be looking at all of this data. And again, this will be available to you as well. We'll probably have an email that goes out maybe Tuesday or Wednesday that says you can go on the district website and get the information. It might be too long of an email to send out, but I'll work with the communications office to make sure I get something out. One of the things that I really want to try to do is the school committee makes decisions about what models we're doing and all of that, and I make the recommendations based on the data and the information, et cetera. From a week from Monday, this coming Monday, till the holiday recess on the 23rd of December, there's 39 days of school. We have no school on election day and we have no school on Veterans Day. And we're going to stick to that schedule. We're not going to move it. So those 39 days are going to be, I think, hugely important for us in not only as a school district, but for the Commonwealth. So for the Commonwealth big picture, we had almost 1,000 positive cases of COVID today in the state, 30 deaths. So the numbers are back to May, and they're starting to look like early May now, not late May. So there's going to be some new metrics coming out about communities. For example, communities that have a college, is that the reason why your numbers are going up? In our case, the answer is no. Wheaton's cases are very limited and not negatively impacting the overall score at all, thanks to their work. The second would be nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Again, not an issue in Norton. It's incredible how it's not been an issue in Norton. And kudos to everybody in the fields that are working to address those issues. And then other situations, that's going to be part of the metric starting next Thursday, where you might have a yellow or you might have a red with an asterisk. And the asterisk is going to say, well, the reason why you're red is because of the college. It's because of the assisted living facility. It's because, so if students aren't going there and you're not having positive cases in schools, it's not necessarily a reason to close. And we're utilizing three weeks of data. What we're thinking about is getting a little bit more aggressive in supporting students in a phase-in process. I know that frustrates people. We know it frustrates people, but we also know that within the public health domain, we have to try to phase in situations. People think that I'm transparent, so I'm going to be transparent. I do not like choosing certain levels of students. I am the superintendent for all children in the district, but under public health requirements, I have to try to phase in things as much as I can. Your children are important to us. Because they're not on the next list, it's not because we don't care. It's not because we don't think they're important. So please don't think that. It's because we're just trying to figure out how to best do this so that we don't end up in remote, because we know that remote with our children who have learning challenges, it is the most difficult part of where we are, right? What we did in March in crisis mode was the best we could, but as I've said, not good enough. So we're trying to, every week we're having discussions. These three people on the camera with you tonight, on the Zoom call with you tonight, were in my conference room the other day when I said to them, I need a timeline of a phase-in plan to bring in more students, specifically targeting our students who we call, quote, high needs, whatever that may be from what you saw earlier from Vinny in terms of our homeless children. You know, some of you might not think we have homeless children in Norton. We do. And they're not necessarily school choice students or DCF students. They may be homegrown students. So keep a big picture that the data that we're using is really true data and information. To go along with all of that, as we try to do some of these phase-in situations, we're also dealing with the public health data that continues to be outside of Norton very negative, right? We're very lucky right now because Taunton and Attleboro and us and Foxborough, we've continued to be in that yellow range, either low, what I would call low yellow or high yellow, but we're in a good place in general as communities, which is kudos to them and to us. And the last part is, as we try to phase in all of these things and we have what I call hiccups, which is all of a sudden we have to do something else. Our goal is to try to minimize, per the comment that was made earlier, a plan A and a plan B for the transition. Whatever can potentially work best for your family and for you, you might say, well, listen, I'm willing to wait 3 days before we transition because of the way my child doesn't react well to a transition. Versus another parent might say, I want that work in front of my child at 8 o'clock the next day, right? So we're going to try to work with you on those types of ideas. And then lastly, one of the great things about our students, regardless of who they are, is boy, oh boy, do they really in general like being in school. For the first time, maybe in a long time, some of our more challenging students, and by challenging, I mean maybe behaviorally challenged more so than just, and that could be in anybody. It doesn't mean they have an IEP or a 504 or their ELL or anything else. They're just a kid that's, acts up in school. The kids have been great. They're keeping their masks on.
Mm-hmm.
They're following directions. They're not getting kicked out of class. They ask to go to the bathroom, they go to the bathroom, they come back within a reasonable amount of time. They walk the hallways properly. They go outside for recess and play together properly. It's not perfect, but boy, does it really talk about kids getting it. I would say that kids in society today are better representative than adults in society are today, especially the 19 to 29-year-old bracket that you're seeing the numbers skyrocket. So kudos to you folks as families and as parents for continuing to say, if we stay safe, school is not that difficult, for us to be able to continue to push forward and introduce better models and more models that have, if you will, more supports. One of the ideas, and I'm going to say it again, ideas being tossed around, trying to figure out the finances, not a good excuse, but it is what it is how can we potentially extend some services to any students whose gaps are wider than we want them to be, regardless if they're in general education or special education, 504, ELL, and so on. How do we get students? So one of the things we would ask you for, it's not a service delivery model within their IEP. This would be something above and beyond that the district wants to provide to families, if and when we can, and that is allowing for your children to be part of Zoom meetings and or live with teachers after school for more hours and more time. We run into one big problem, transportation. So we're going to need your support with that, kind of a tutoring model, if you will. So we're going to start working on trying to really scratch every penny that we can, get donations if we can, anything that we can to really, really target certain populations of students to get them into school in order to give them some support so they don't fall any further behind. The biggest gap change for any student was actually March to June more than it is June to September this year, right? We always see this summer kind of like drag, if you will. This year we didn't see the traditional increase from March to June that we see with students. We saw it at a lower level. So we need to do some catching up. And that's the reason why students are taking things like our STAR assessment. We're really keeping an eye on collecting data from students and about students in order to make better decisions. A couple more questions. Is it possible to get some of the OT items that are used in the classroom to use at home, i.e. the bumpy seat cushions, et cetera? I'll defer that to you guys.
Yeah, so I think that that's a kind of a multi-layered question. So we're absolutely able to send you a link for where we can purchase those things if you want to on your own. I think that if a classroom is to go full remote due to a COVID situation and we are able to send home some supports that way, I think we can do that, but we do not have a budget to right now to supply all the occupational therapy or sensory needs to all the families, but we can certainly help navigate and locate the items as we move forward.
There's also there's ways of doing that are not as expensive, that can be creatively done. A plastic bag with some of those popcorn kernels that you get from your Amazon packages is one way of doing that. Gives that same kind of feel. If you have those bands that the exercise bands, putting those around some table legs or chair legs, it does all those same kinds of things. So there's some cheap alternatives, and I'm sure the OT or the special education teacher would be happy to help. And if they're not sure, if you don't have a OT particularly in your plan, reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to give you some ideas.
We had a question from someone asking about, are there other districts that are implementing a similar model for high need students so we can all understand, compare best practices, successes, or challenges? Thank you for all your help and effort. Truly appreciate it. I'll take it from my kind of 35,000 feet. We are being pushed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to continue to enhance our model for teaching and learning with all students, but really targeting students that have IEPs, disabilities at risk, all of that stuff. So I'll defer to some specifics, Vinny, if you want to share that.
Yeah, in terms of other districts, it runs the gamut. To be perfectly honest, there's some that are doing some very similar things to us. There are others that are fully remote. It really does run the gamut. Both Casey and I belong to a number of listservs and job alike groups that we are constantly getting emails from and emailing back. So people are asking us for our ideas of what we're doing, and we're doing the same thing. So there's a number of things that have occurred behind the scenes, or things that we're doing with students and staff, and from training to a curriculum to behavioral interventions during these times that honestly we've stolen those ideas from, and then people have stolen back from us. So I guess we're sharing. So yeah, we're in constant contact with our peers, not just in some of them are local. We have some smaller groups that are all the local districts, but we're also on groups where it's most of the state. And then when we go to our DESE webinars, my favorite part sometimes is my only favorite part is when they share, people share ideas and share things that have been successful for them. So we're definitely working with our peers to try to make sure that we give you the best interventions we can.
I also want to speak just generally about every child with an IEP. Sometimes we spend a lot of time talking about some of our students that are in our specialized programs, and we spend more time on that than, let's say, students who are on an IEP but are fully included all the time everywhere. That's another goal for us, is to try to find ways to support students. And we've done two things to try to do that. One of them is we've created a goal evaluation for every general education teacher and special education teacher in the district. And literally it's called Teaching All Students, and how general education teachers have to be able, especially with the class sizes the way they are right now, accommodate and modify like they're supposed to all students so that there's success. And we're going to stand by that and really push that goal for teachers. That's one. The second one is really taking a look at the social emotional needs of students. What we're seeing with students from all different backgrounds is that students that may have an IEP, may not, 504, may not, are on the honor roll, and all of a sudden they're not. They're struggling with being behind the computer. They're struggling with getting motivated. You're talking, most of you probably know that if I was in school today, I would definitely be the ADH kid. Being behind a computer, my administrators know, is something I dislike a lot. My brain just doesn't like it this way. I'm an active learner. I like to see things, etc. Maybe some of your children are like that. We're seeing those kids struggle. And it's not because they want to struggle. It's because they're just struggling with the way that they normally learn. That's one of the reasons why we did the 6 feet. It wasn't only because of the regulation saying it should be 6 feet. We did the 6 feet in the classroom because I was so concerned about being cramped at 3 feet in an instructional model, especially at the elementary level, where you don't even sit in rows. You sit in pairs, you sit in circles, you sit in groups, and all of a sudden you would be stuck to a desk like this all day, versus at least now they have 6 feet. They can move around their chair. I was just at the JCS the other day watching students literally stretching out around their chair, sitting on the floor. We have teachers that have marked off big 6-foot squares so that the students know that within that area, they can lie down on their belly if they want. They can sit back if they want, and really move around. So we took all of these considerations for kids because we wanted to make sure that they didn't feel confined, especially at the elementary level, to a space that literally is not what they do or have been doing. Try telling a preschooler or a kindergarten that you only have to stay in a 3x3 area. It's impossible. 6 feet, I'll have to tell you, come into any of our classrooms, and or maybe one of these days I'll actually take a picture of it. You should see these kids, they stay in their areas. Now, sometimes as I said the other day, sometimes the mouth cover is here, the mask might be here, and we have to show them that it needs to go here. It might be here, and we have to tell them it goes here. But they're being kids, and you just correct them, and they figure it out. We have very few kids that refuse to follow the general rules around safety, and if they do, we know and we recognize it's working around their learning challenges and supporting them. So
I did want to say one other thing though about I want to give kudos to some of our special education staff, and I'm sure our regular education staff as well, who, I was talking about some of the job alikes and listservs that we take part in, Casey and I, but I know for a fact that a number of our special ed teachers are talking to their peers in other districts and getting ideas. I had a situation today where we were talking about a student and somebody had gotten a suggestion from a peer. So, it really is a community, an educational community that's working together in many different ways to try to figure out the best way that we can provide these services and meet students where they're at. So I just wanted to give a shout out because we've got some nice ideas from our own staff saying, hey, try this worked for me, and we pass it on down the line.
Two other questions that have come in. One is about who's replacing someone while they're on maternity leave. We'll get that information, Tim, out to you probably in the next week or so, maybe 10 days, just so that you know who's going to be filling for who, and we can have introductions done so you don't feel like just left out. So Vinny, if we could make sure that in this particular case, it's who's covering for Mrs. Small while she's out on maternity leave. I guess I just announced that to the world. So we'll get that out to you, Tim, and to any other situations that take place. We'll try to be positive and communicative to you. We have another question about a child who's in at the JCS grade 2, just recently diagnosed with ADHD. Are the teachers testing the kids to see their gaps maybe from last year? Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about STAR and how that works?
We are doing all of our typical beginning of the year assessments. One of the things that we do with all students in grades now K-8 is our STAR assessment, which takes a look at the lower levels at early literacy and numeracy skills, and then with reading and math as students get older. In addition to that, we also do the benchmark assessment system, which is a more comprehensive reading assessment for students in K-5. So all of that testing is taking place or already has taken place. And that's just another data point for us to take a look at students in order to plan instruction for the upcoming school year, looking at gaps, looking at areas of strength for all of our students.
And one of the things that Jen knows that I love is once all of that is really done and we have the data, then what we like to do is have a big powwow about it to really talk about where our pockets of significant needs are. There's some significant research coming out from DC done in 26 different states that talks about some real gaps in grades 3, 4, and 5, bigger gaps in 3, 4, or 5 than anywhere else. I find that data to be very interesting, and I've been kind of reading and researching about it, and then taking a look at what our data is going to say. Do we see the same thing, or do we see it differently? Do we see it more in first grade or second grade or whatever the case? Reminding ourselves that from March to June, we didn't have a traditional year. So, because of that, the gaps may in some cases be wider than we thought in K1, then maybe even 3. But again, we're going to have to figure that out for our own local students and their data.
And teachers are working very hard to do all of that right now. They're looking at the data that their students, they're putting together instructional groups, they're working with our specialists.
And I think the other thing that that was the curriculum, but the SEL guy would say that we're also going to be doing and are doing some SEL kinds of screenings, and we're going to be doing a survey for our students. And this year we're going to include the younger ones by having the teachers do the screening. So we're going to be looking at that aspect of the child as well.
Shout out to Miss Danielle for doing a great job. Kudos. Thank you for the compliment, Katie. And Lisa has a question about, do we have a timetable for sharing the student data with families so that maybe they can be part of supporting the child at home?
Once all of the assessment data is done, your child's teacher will be sharing it with you. Usually we send home a specific parent report for STAR that gives you more information, specifically around standards and about curriculum areas that is not necessarily your child's in comparison to other students, which is really important. We have not shared the BAS data in the past, only because last year was our first year using it. So it's still a little bit new for us, but I will work with our reading specialist to see if there's something that we can put together for that as well. So great question, Lisa, thank you.
And a couple more coming in. Maybe, let me see, I'll get another one. Is there going to be any type of fall parent-teacher conferences this year? Do you want to go with that one, Jen?
Here, I'll take that one too. So at the elementary level, we definitely plan on doing a fall parent-teacher conference. It will likely be virtual because, you know, having families into our school is a little bit difficult at the moment, but probably otherwise very similar to what you've experienced in the past in K-5, having a set time with your child's teacher or teachers. At the high school and middle school level, the period is much smaller. So usually I believe you only get 4 to 6 minutes with the teacher. So therefore we are going to, I'm actually working with Mr. Hayward and Mr. Dahlman right now to come up with a plan that if parents want to request a conference, or if a teacher has a request to meet with a parent, that we are able to do that. But we likely will not be hosting conferences for every child at the secondary level.
Okay. I think that addresses as many of the issues as we can. This meeting is being recorded, and we will, you know, post it up as we try to do and available. We appreciate, first of all, thank you to Vinny and Casey and Jen very much. Appreciate your work. One of the great things about Norton Public Schools is we don't have all of those layers of sub-administrators. We only have like one person in the job. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer for us to get things done, but we are attempting different things, new things. And the committee will be listening to this next Thursday. And then from there, there'll be an issue of whatever decision is made. I don't see it being a drastic change based upon what's happening in the Commonwealth, but we want to continue to tweak the way that we're delivering our services. And a big shout out to my staff, my teaching staff, who are they're just amazing people. They're trying really, really hard. And if they're not successful, it's not because they're not trying to be successful. It's because they're also learning how to do certain things, because this is all new to us. So thank you for all the shout outs to Sarah Johnson, Ms. Branco at the LGN. My son loves, capital LOVES, going to school every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Last question that we'll take is from Michelle. It was comforting to know that the rise in traveling is of concern to Dr. Baeta as well. And I love to travel, Michelle, for the record. It seems like there's a good multi-tiered plan, as 2 of my children do not tolerate remote learning well, and a return to full remote learning would be very difficult. I agree, Michelle, 100%. We're going to continue to push as much as we can.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Another one, Miss Ligotti is amazing at the L too. Thank you for all the compliments. Reach out to the teachers and tell them that. Send them a quick email and just say thank you. They need the positive reinforcement. And if they're not doing what you expect, call them about that too. But if they are, send them a quick email that says, thank you for supporting my child. That's all it needs to be. Just let them know that what they're doing is helping and supporting your child. Have a great night. Thank you for supporting NPS. Well,
Hi, everybody.